Hi, welcome back to Gray Stem Farm. My name is Trudy. It's January 1st, 2021. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm out in the greenhouse today getting ready to start seeds. So let's get started. So let me cover a few things before I get started. First of all, I use 72 plug trays and I fill them with potting soil. The potting soil I like to use is ProMix PGX, and the P stands for plug and the G starts for germination. It's a very fine mix that's great for seeds. It's got no fertilizer or anything in it, and it's got a lot of vermiculite in it, which holds moisture into the soil. So let's talk a quick minute about vermiculite. There's two things that's added to potting soil, vermiculite and perlite. And for the longest time, those two things confused me. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what the differences are. Vermiculite holds moisture, and that's what helps keep the moisture in the seedling trays and in the soil. You don't want to put vermiculite into soils or potting mixes that are going to have plants that do not like wet feet or do not like a lot of moisture. Perlite, on the other hand, is a puffed volcanic material, has lots of air spaces in it. It'll hold moisture for a short time, but then it'll evaporate the moisture very quickly. So it's good for aerating soils for things like succulents and cacti and lavender. So I like to use a lot of perlite in my lavender pots when I take the plugs out of their trays and put them into the grow out pots before I put them out into the lavender field. So let me show you the differences between the two. I have two bins under my shelves here. The first is perlite. That's perlite. It's very puffy and very lightweight. And this is vermiculite. It's tan in color and it's super fine. Whereas the perlite is rather coarse. Another way I remember the difference between vermiculite and perlite is vermiculite starts with a V, like a vase that holds water. And perlite, are like pearly gates, airy, light, up in the sky. They're very airy, they keep aeration in the soil. So that's just my little quirky way of remembering the difference between the two when I want to add them to potting soil. So let's get started. In my potting mix into a muck bucket and moisten it so that it gets, it'll hold together slightly, but then fall immediately apart. I like to keep it that moist. So there are two things I like to use when I'm dealing with potting soil. One is an old feed scoop that gives me a lot to pour over the top, and the other is just a gardening trowel to help spread it across and scoop out little bits when I only need to fill in a little bit. Another thing to think about when you're starting seeds, flower, and vegetable is cleanliness is important. I buy my plug trays in cases, so I have enough that each year I can use a new plug tray, but I don't waste. I clean out last year's plug trays with some soapy water, followed by a rinse in a bleach solution, 10%, and then I let those sit for a year to solarize in the spring sun, not in the summer sun. The summer sun, these type of trays will melt. You don't want that. Well, melt and warp. Ask me how I know. So, yeah, I like to let the last year's trays sit for a year, and then we'll rotate. And then when they get worn out or cracked or broken, I move on to the next set of new ones. So. It's also cheaper to buy them by the case, so it's also money saving in that way, respect as well. Now, this is really light stuff, so I want to make sure that it's getting compacted, and what I'll do is I'll take another loose plug tray, lay it on top, and kind of just press down, and that forms little seed pockets so that I can sprinkle the stuff overhead. Let me see if I can get that close up. You see the little pockets? Under seeds is to put a layer of sand above the potting soil or the germination mix. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put a little bit, and I just use a little old mixing measuring spoon, layer it lightly, just so it covers, and I spread it out a little bit. This might be a better angle. You just see I'm sprinkling the sand in, gently brushing it off the edges here, just enough to coat top of the seed starting mix. Not a lot. Just enough. This is kind of a coarse sand. I probably should have picked up a finer clay sand or something, but oh well, that's what I've got for now. So, and this is again because lavender do not like wet feet. This is also the first time I'm starting lavender from seed. Usually I buy plugs, and this year I did buy plugs as well, but I wanted to see if I could start it from seed because seed starting is always a good skill to have. So, we'll see if it works. They're a Mediterranean plant. Okay. Now let's see if our little seeder works with lavender seeds. If I've got it on the right setting. One. Oh yeah, it does. And there's a little lines that go across that kind of act as, what are they called in the parking lots? Speed bumps, so that the seeds don't all rush out. So I can actually plant one at a time. Come on, just takes a lot of tapping and a lot of patience. Come on, get out. But it's going much faster than the toothpick method. Come on, there we go. Oops, I got 3 that time. Your speed bump didn't work. Put this back on. All right, ladies' mantle, you must grow. You must grow here. Now, these are really tiny seeds. I'm dropping about 4 or 5. That's a little bit more than I want, so I'm going to slow it down and decrease the angle here. And just tap, tap, tap. I'm not going to cover these either. And I just lay them on top, and then if I got them all in their little plugs, I will push them down. This way I know that I didn't miss one, because I don't want to waste a plug. And then if there's one in each one, I know that if one doesn't come up, it just didn't germinate, and that I can retry that plug. Whoops, come over here. So I'm going to fill this entire flat. Now it is a little late to start sweet peas here, but it's also a little early, which this will probably be. I'm hoping. Just sprinkle it lightly. Spread the soil over. Just pop down some of the ones that seem to be a little up above the soil, and just sprinkle the soil on top. And this is why you don't want your plug soil to be too wet. You want to be able to do this. Just lightly start. With the soil blockers, you really need to put the seed on top, or what type of soil you need to use soil blockers. If you notice, this potting soil is really wet, and when I squeeze it, water runs out. I'm squeezing it really hard, and then it holds together. That's how wet you want it to be. Not dripping just sitting here, but when you squeeze it really hard and water comes out, that's perfect. So that's for soil blockers, not for plugs. Plugs needs to be dry. Lisa Mason Ziegler starts her soil blocks in, I'm going to call them styrofoam meat trays. I use old cookie sheets. These are half sheet cake pan cookie sheets. They have a lip, so that's what I use. I've collected these mountain mitten seeds from my property. They're native to Virginia. It's a beautiful filler foliage plant, and it smells so good. There we go. Whoops, very dusty, very dusty. They're very, very fine seeds. I'm going to put them in the extra area on the tray that I've started already. So let's do that. Mountain mint is going right over here. Okay. Now I'm going to assume this does not need covering of soil. because it just falls on the ground and germinates. So I'm just going to leave it without. So don't discount your wildflowers. Some people call them weeds. Okay, the next things I'm going to plant are giant parsley, arugula, and red winter kale. These are all cold hardy. They're in Virginia in 7B. The hardiness, if you don't already know, the hardiness tells you how cold plants can tolerate, but it doesn't tell you how much heat they can take. That would be a heat index. The American Horticultural Society used to have a heat index chart, but I don't know if they still do. And while we might be the same as 7B in other areas for cold, we get much hotter than those areas. So I need to start things that people would normally start in spring. I need to get a head start on them because it immediately goes to hot by Memorial Day here. And by mid-June it's already in the 80s. So we have to get an early jump on cool season stuff. Either plant it the fall before or plant it now in the beginning of January for planting out to finish growing. Okay, that's a tray of red kale. And next, I'm going to do some arugula. The wind is picking up. It's getting colder. And after only a couple of weeks after these sprout, I can get them out in the garden area where the cabbage and tatsoi are. And then in spring we'll have plenty of greens as soon as it starts warming up. As soon as that soil starts getting warm. I'll be like, fresh greens time, yay! And last but not least, Italian parsley. The chickens have stopped fussing, but the cat is still yowling out there. I'm going to have to go feed her. Okay, here we go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along with future videos, and the notifications bell so that you know when the videos are posted. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section below, and I'll be happy to answer them if I can. And if not, then I can try and direct you to another source. So, happy seed starting. It's January. Time to go forward. Spring is coming.